Why, hi there, I'm Ron Chuckett. You might remember me from such websites as Bleacher Report, Red Sox 101, a division of Sports Media 101, or Seamheads, where I might actually post an article or two this off season. You also might know me from the 2004 Boston Red Sox replay I'm currently doing here on YouTube, in which we are 31 games into and having a great old time. Like and subscribe, and there's usually a new game posted every day around noontime, and a summary every 7 days about 5:30 that afternoon, along with whatever else just kind of crosses the mind. I was a writer for Bleacher Report. I was a featured columnist for the Detroit Tigers in Major League Baseball and pro golf. And then I went to Red Sox 101, which was a division of Sports Media 101. And once in a while, I contribute to CMADs too. So I still follow the Red Sox, not as closely as I did when I was getting page views by the hundreds and then occasionally some money. But I figured, what the hell? We'll just start again. Now that the season's over, let's take a look at what went right for the Red Sox or what went wrong. And when things are warranted, or once a week, I'll throw up my thoughts on the week that was for the Boston Red Sox. Okay? If you looked at where the team was supposed to become, March, and you looked and said, oh my gosh, 76, and what was the record? Let's look at my bald spot. 78 and 84, you'd go, oh my God, how horrible is that? What a lousy team. We should fire everybody, start again, and let's sign the best and brightest free agents we can find, right? Wrong. 78 and 84 for a team that couldn't hit its way out of a paper bag the first 3 months of the year is incredible. The young nucleus that we had hoped would be ready for next year, at least on the offensive side, came running through full force at the end of this year. Blake Swihart is learning behind the plate. He did end up hitting 5 homers in 84 games. He wasn't ready when he came up, but injuries kind of made him grow up to play, and he ended up hitting 274 with an OBP of 319. His OPS plus was 90 according to Baseball Reference. That's not terrible. He's supposed to be the better defensive of the new kids that are supposed to catch, along with Christian Vasquez. We won't go through these all. If you look at the kids, you look at Swihart, you look at Bogarts, who hit a whopping 320, drove in 81 runs, he stole 10 bases, he had 196 hits. He just did everything that you wanted to. Now that they finally found a place to play him at short, which is where he wanted to be all along. Mookie Betts is going to be a legend. He's probably the best year in the outfield as a rookie since Freddie Lennon back in 75. He ends up with 18 homers, 21 stolen bases. He hit 291 and had an OPS plus of 118. That's incredible. Rusney Castillo, I think the jury's kind of still out on him. I don't think he's worth the money that they spent. And of course, Jackie Bradley and Travis Shaw. Bradley learned how to hit to a degree this year. Major League pitching. He hit 249, but his OPS plus was 120. Why? Because he got a base, and he hit for extra base hits. He had 31 extra base hits out of 55 hits. That's pretty good. If he can keep that going in the next year, that makes a pretty formidable outfield. Dustin Pedroia, who you think is a grizzled veteran, is only 31. Still, in half a season, hit 12 homers. David Ortiz at 39. Went 37 homers and 108 RBI and still hit 273 and led the team at OPS plus at 141. Those are Hall of Fame numbers. So the core is there. We saw what we wanted to see, and they won. Yes, there is a but coming. Last year's shiny new toys, Pablo Sandoval and Hanley Ramirez, were unmitigated disasters. Sandoval hit 245. He gained so much weight and lost so much energy that he'd be yanked from games because he just didn't have the energy to play. He became dehydrated. How the hell do you do that? Look, I'm not a small person whatsoever, but you play third base and you run. How in the world do you get hurt so much? Can you stay out of the buffet lines from the Steak and Shake or wherever it is that he goes to, that's just irresponsible. And so in the end, when you are one of the two best offensive bats on the free agent market, and you end up with an OPS plus of 76, that's 24% lower than the league average adjusted to a ballpark. Okay, in 470 at bats, 25 doubles, 1 triple, which he probably got hurt on running, and 10 home runs. That's just with an on-base percentage of 292. Okay? Even Mike Napoli, who he ran out on a rail, had a bit better OPP from that 307. Castillo was worse. Even, let's see, Alejandro De Aza, who we ended up shipping off at the trade deadline, had an OPP of 347. There's no excuse for someone who's under 30 years old. He's 28 years old, to have that crappy of a year. At least defensively, when he played, he was all right. And of course, that brings us to the unmitigated disaster known as Hanley Ramirez. And yes, I knew at the time, pat myself on the back if I could, that Ramirez was just a disaster waiting to happen. What the hell would you put in someone to play the Green Monster who had never played an inning of outfield in Major League Baseball? Just because Manny Ramirez transitioned from right to left field, Manny had a good arm, and when he wanted to play, played very well. Hanley, not so much. Not so much. Okay, yeah, he hit 19 homers in 105 games, but guess what? His OBP was lower than Sandoval's. At 291, he hit 249. Couldn't draw a walk. Kept getting hurt. Refused to learn how to play defense. How many games did this cost the Red Sox with Ramirez in left field? And they kept sticking him out there. Oh, no, he'll adjust. Bull crap, he'll adjust. He's 31, not 21. Remember, Mookie Betts grew up as a second baseman. When you're in your early 20s, you can go find whatever position you want to play because you're hungry enough. But Hanley? Who the hell were you kidding? And it cost Ben Cherington his job. And whoever told Ben Cherington, oh, sure, we think we can sell lots of jerseys of Pablo Sandoval and Hanley Ramirez, they probably don't have a job anymore either, as we think it was Larry Lucchino who did such a good job convincing the city of Providence that it needed to take the Pawtucket Red Sox. The Red Sox just might leave Rhode Island whatsoever, but that's another story. So Ben Cherington lost his job. Dave Dombrowski is now running the show with a new GM that I forget the name, but he's not doing anything. I think kind of like what Theo Epstein's done with Chicago. It's just kind of a name only, and the director of baseball operations is the one that runs the show. And what they consider a general manager now, we would consider historically to be an assistant general manager, what Mike Port was for years for Boston, what Cherington was under Theo Epstein, and vice versa. So that's, I think, what with the new role for the GM is now. It's Dombrowski's team, and once they decided to end the Hanley experiment and let the kids play in the outfield, the team turned around. Now, there are obviously some holes. We're not going to get to the pitching in this video, but there is no real closer. There is no real ace. Eduardo Rodriguez turned into a very good pitcher at the end of the year, and I think there's some building blocks for next year. But if they're going to compete and win in the postseason, which is what the expectation is now for Red Sox Nation, they need someone that can go out there and either win a wild card game or win that first game of an LDS and kind of go through. They have a staff full of 2s and 3s, maybe 3s and 4s. They need to make a decision with Clay Buchholz and kind of go from there. I don't think Rick Porcello will be as bad in year 2 as he was in year 1. The other X factor that we need to look into, besides needing a third baseman, because it's not Pablo Sandoval, is the ownership. They seem to be completely tone deaf and surprised that their decisions aren't met with great fanfare. During the days of when the Red Sox were the only team to really compete outside of the Celtics back in the 80s, you could get away with dysfunction and tone deafness because really that was the only game in town. The Patriots had a couple of good years, but they weren't consistently very good. The Bruins fought a lot in the 80s, but they weren't really a cup contending team until the decade drew out towards the end and they ran into Edmonton, and gosh, that didn't really break my heart, but that's another story. now with the rise of the Patriots being the dominant team in the National Football League, and Tom Brady being for what this generation, what Bobby Orr, Carl Yastrzemski, and Larry Bird were for their generation, the Red Sox have to try harder to keep people's attention during the season, which seems almost unfathomable if you grew up around here in New England, and with 3 world championships over the course of a generation. Why? Because the Patriots are doing everything right. They have the stars, they have the ownership, they seem to care about what their fans think, which is not what we see from the Red Sox at all. Yes, Ben Cherington needed to be let go. He was not a great assessor of major league talent and signed some players such as Sandoval and Ramirez to contracts that were laughable and horrible. But they just made the move to dismiss him during the annual Jimmy Fund radio and telethon thrown by the Red Sox own NESN and WEEI, which kind of takes the attention away from the kids and odd to their general tone deafness, which is not what you want. And then there was the whole, our ratings are down, let's fire Don Orsillo. Excuse me, let's fire Don Orsillo? Okay, so Dave O'Brien was out of a contract at WEEI at the end of the year, and they wanted to keep him, and I think he'll be fine on television. But let's get rid of the guy who has been the primary voice for 15 years, 3 world championships, makes Bad's baseball watchable. I mean, yes, they get goofy. And yes, it is hard to watch. Let's do a Twitter poll, Jerry. What do you think? Yeah, that's not real good television. But Nesson kind of took the focus off the field and put it onto Twitter polls and this, that, the other thing. It's not Orsillo's fault that the ratings dropped. 62,000 people signed a petition for him to be reinstated, and now he'll get to replace spend a year under Dick Enberg's wing in San Diego and become a legend out there. No. The Red Sox ownership just doesn't seem to get it, and we don't need to be going out and spending lots of money on David Price this offseason or whatever eye candy to sell the tickets, because it hasn't worked. It's never worked. Carl Crawford, Adrian Gonzalez, yeah, the Dodgers took them off our hands. Did it work for here? No. Did we spend a lot of money? Yes. Can we do it again? No. No. For as successful as this team has been, the biggest handicap they have right now is their ownership. They're not liked, not in the way that George Steinbrenner did. Yankee fans hated Steinbrenner for doing everything he could to win. He wanted to win. This group just doesn't seem to care, and as long as you go spend the $6.25 on the Bud Lights and get cramped in $20 in the hamburgers, they're happy. And it just kind of goes on and on from there. So that's the biggest X factor. Will they let Dave Dombrowski assemble the team that he wants to assemble? Because the core, I think, is there. Ortiz has 1 or maybe 2 good years left in him. I think if Pedroia was healthy for a full year, I think he and Ortiz could provide the veteran leadership. And if you can find a place for Pablo Sandoval to play, such as first base, I think he kind of fits that Ortiz role. Hanley's got to go. He's got to go, and I if it's a bucket of warm spit and Haywood Sullivan's ghost that you get back for him, that's fine. That's better than how the hell can you go 100 for 400, hit 249, and have an on-base percentage of 291? Not gonna fly. Not gonna fly, and you can't pout. So, and of course, the one more thing I wanted to touch on was that I am in support of the Red Sox bringing back John Farrell to manage. The team played a lot better with Torey Lovullo was in the dugout instead of Farrell, but to fire Farrell because of his lymphoma diagnosis, which he successfully beat, sends the wrong message. They started to win when Hanley Ramirez got out of the lineup, when they really committed to the kids. It really was the dismissal of Cherington that turned the team around. Let's give Farrell a chance to see what he can do with this team, and I think Lovullo will be a very good manager at some point. Hopefully it'll be for the Red Sox in the future, and they can kind of bridge the gap and bring in Jason Varitek, who I also think will be a very good manager at some point in Major League Baseball, hopefully for the Boston Red Sox. So I think there's a lot of good things going forward. I think you can look at 78 and 84 and say, okay, it could have been a lot worse. And yes, it was a second straight second straight last place finish in a division that wasn't very strong. But on the other hand, I think that the year ended all right, and there's lots of, while there's some things to improve, and we'll go closely into the pitching the next time. The things are a lot better now in October than they were in July. And so, having said that, I think I'm going to do these weekly in the off season. In the comments below, tell me tell me I'm full of crap and things you'd like me to address on the show for next year or through the off season. Hit that like button, subscribe here. I post, it's just me, myself, and I post a new game in the 2004 Boston Red Sox replay using Action PC Baseball 2014. It usually goes up at noon every day. And so we'll keep doing that. And so like and subscribe and get some fresh baseball to watch or listen to. You can listen to me do play-by-play. You can follow me on Twitter at Ron Juckett, or like I said, just like and subscribe here. And so I look forward to seeing what you have to say. Until then, I'm Ron Juckett, and we'll talk to you the next time. Isn't that a good fake smile?